So I'll just get the screen share working. We need
If we do that, go and get. That's no to do that. Come on, up here. Come on, over here. Come on, go and get. Come on.
nothing on here, is there? Oh, here we are. So I'll just scroll to the top. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we'll just recap. First, the introduction was about the Vedas. That shows the authority of Isopanisad. Then what the absolute truth is, the subject of the Isopanisad. Then the proprietorship, the laws of God. So it says that the absolute truth is Ishavasham is the owner and controller of everything. So if we use things in that spirit, then we can aspire to have a long life to perfect our life. If we don't, then a long life is actually detrimental because it just produces more reactions, more bad karma. Then 4 to 7, 4 to 8 is vision of a more. There's 3 kinds of devotees: Kanishta, lowest form, and the Madhyam, and finally the Uttama or the Mahabhagavat. And so it's explaining how he sees things in relationship to the absolute truth. And then and now it talks about, how to approach the absolute truth. Now we understand what the absolute truth is according to the Mahabhagavat. What is that process that we can approach him? And it's knowledge. The first one is knowledge. So, it takes 9 to 10. Give us what kind of knowledge we should be following and what to avoid. And then how to use that knowledge. And then the next section, 12, 13, 14, this will be worship. Once we have knowledge, what's the correct type of worship? Who do we worship? Why do we worship? Like that. So that's where we hope maybe to get up to that section next. So we're on 10. So we'll just go down to mantra 10. Yeah, so there's a link. Cultivation of false knowledge we did last week. We spoke about, can you remember what the false knowledge was? We talked about one person may be ignorant and do the wrong things. The second person may be ignorant and do the wrong things and teach others how to do it as well, in the guise of knowledge. So we said it's very dangerous that if we listen to such people. And then we related to the modern educations like that. It appears to be very relevant to our needs. But it's just knowledge about this material world. It doesn't tell us how to get out of it. So therefore, it just binds us further. So then, having established that, so how do we make sure that we cultivate proper knowledge? This is a mantra 10. The difference between vidya and avidya. So we've just been speaking in the first half of this verse, which we got halfway through it, about avidya. So now I've got a bookmark here. Just a minute, let me find it. Did anybody put the bookmarks in for this?
Yeah, me.
You did? Oh.
Go on. You're on.
Sorry?
Then you got the same book as me, but we're on page 64.
Yeah, well, what we did, we talked about the items of knowledge, didn't we? Those 18 items. Humility, pridelessness, simplicity, all the good qualities which develop knowledge. And we talked about, you know, how people who don't develop this knowledge are like asses. They're just becoming, you know, they're ignorant. And modern society is pretty much like that. So, you know, Isopanisad strongly warns against the culture of nescience. So therefore, you know, then it talks about university students, you know, they're being cultivated in ignorance. They're not taught the principles of brahmacharya, celibate life. In fact, it's exactly the opposite. People are thinking that nationalism, altruism, thisism, thatism are all helpful, but they're all different forms of ignorance, actually. And then you talk about the planetary systems. You know, we think we're actually, scientists are doing something wonderful by floating a Apollo 8 or Apollo 10, whatever it is, and a Sputnik in the air. But, you know, what is it compared to all the planetary systems just in one universe? Who's actually, you know, controlling those? So, yeah, we're on this chapter now. It starts there are innumerable suns and innumerable planetary systems. So if you've got the page, Barbara Mataji, do you have a big enough screen to read it?
Yeah.
Okay, you can start.
There are innumerable suns and innumerable planetary systems also. As infinitesimal parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, we small creatures are trying
You have to
to
speak up. You have to speak up.
Sorry.
And read a bit slower. Well, not too slow, but just so.
Thus we take repeated birth and death and are generally frustrated by old age and disease. The span of human life is scheduled for about 100 years, although it is gradually decreasing to 20 or 30 years. Thanks to the culture of nations, before men have created their own nations within the planet in order to grasp sense enjoyment more effectively for these few years. Such foolish people draw up various plans to render national demarcations perfectly, a task that is totally impossible. Yet for this purpose, each and every nation has become a source of anxiety for others. More than 50% of the nation's energy is devoted to defense measures that thus spoil. No one cares for the cultivation of real knowledge, and yet people are falsely proud of being advanced in both material and spiritual knowledge.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's just carrying on with what we were talking about earlier. You think the material gains are actually knowledge, but they're not. So, Don Prabhu, would you like to read next?
Sri Isopanisad warns us of this faulty type of education, and Bhagavad Gita gives instructions as to the development of real knowledge. In this mantra, there is a hint that instructions of vidya, knowledge, must be acquired from a dhira. A dhira is one who is not disturbed by material illusion. No one can be undisturbed unless he is perfectly spiritually realized, at which time one neither hankers nor laments for anything. Adira realizes that the material body and mind, which he has acquired by chance through material association, are but form elements. Therefore, he simply makes the best use of a bad bargain.
Okay. So what is it we're talking about? Right? Adira. And then there's Adira. So Adira is, Dira means sober, means peaceful. So Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So Lord Shiva is the perfect Dira. He was naked and he was meditating, and his wife came to him, to try and actually agitate him. But even though she came in that way, he actually wasn't affected. So this is the, Vishwanath Chakravarti, of course, says this is actually a Dira. And, one who's not actually agitated by sex life ultimately, even though there's actually, because on the platform of Lord Shiva or great devotees, they don't see the difference between man and woman. You don't see, they're not seen on the material platform, they're seen on the spiritual platform. But, this is a very, very advanced state. But at least we have to be, to some degree, Dira. We have to be sober enough to understand what to do and what not to do, what to avoid and what to, like that. And then we can, control our senses in a regulated way. All right. Mataji, Thakurani. Mataji, can you read?
The material body and mind are bad bargains for the spiritual living entity. The living entity has actual functions in the living spiritual world, but this material world is dead. As long as living spiritual sparks manipulate the dead lumps of matter, the dead world appears to be a living world. Actually, it is the living souls, the parts and parcels of the supreme living being, who move the world. The Dhiras have come to know all these facts by hearing them from superior authorities and have realized this knowledge by following the regulative principles.
Yeah. I was going to say something. I remember when I was first started doing Sankirtan, it was in Liverpool, the pool. And, there were people, and I got this realization that the whole city is dead. I don't know, I just know that there's nothing actually alive here, only the people walking about in the streets. You know what I mean? I can't describe it any more than that, but I just got that realization by Krishna's grace that everything is dead except by virtue that there's a soul in these bodies which are flapping about in the middle of Liverpool. Has anybody else had that realization? It's not only in Liverpool, by the way. Nobody, okay.
When I was on Sankirtan
What's
in
that?
Glasgow, I
What?
was on Sankirtan
All
in
right.
Glasgow, and that was after a while of chanting. Anyway, I was in a good place spiritually. I could sort of see the motivations of everyone and how everyone was driven by sex.
Yeah.
It was like just frustrated and angry and looking for sex
Yeah.
in some way or another, like making a nest or it was just that was everyone's motivation.
Yeah.
It was an interesting.
Yeah, the whole material world's driven directly or indirectly by this sex drive. It's the impetus for everything working. If that's not there, nobody will do anything. Okay, thanks. So, Suman, would you like to read?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I was I'm not in a condition to read today. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. What about Jai Krishna?
Yeah. To follow the regulative principles, one must take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. Transcendental message and regulative principles come down from the spiritual master to the disciple. Such knowledge does not come in the hazardous way of nescient education. One can become a Dhira only by submissively hearing from a bona fide spiritual master. Arjuna, for example, became a Dhira by submissively hearing from Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead himself. Thus, the perfect disciple must be like Arjuna, and the spiritual master must be as good as the Lord himself. This is the process of learning vidya, knowledge, from the Dhira, the undisturbed.
Okay. Disciplic succession. I'll just read a bit. An Adhira, one who has not undergone the training of a Dhira, cannot be an instructive leader. Modern politicians who pose themselves as Dhiras are actually Adhiras, and one cannot expect perfect knowledge from them. They are simply busy seeing to their own remuneration, dollars and cents. How then can they lead the mass of people to the right path of self-realization? Thus one must hear submissively from a Dhira in order to attain actual education. Okay. So that's the end of that particular verse. And basically we're talking about the difference between first chapter text 9 is the first in a series of 3 verses which talk about knowledge and ignorance. And the first verse talks about those who people are generally in ignorance, but those who are in ignorance and try to teach others, actually more dangerous. They lead them in the wrong direction in the guise of knowledge. Now we've just read about, the difference between knowledge and ignorance. Okay. And basically we're saying there's 18 items of knowledge. If we follow those items, then we'll start to go in the right direction. And ultimately, by doing that, we can come to the point of taking shelter of a bona fide spiritual master who can engage us in devotional service. So these 18 items are the mode of goodness activities. And it's from the mode of goodness that we can actually take up devotional service. It's very difficult from the other modes. So now we're going on to the third verse in this section on knowledge and ignorance. And this is talking about we have to have both. We have to understand properly what is ignorance and what is knowledge. Otherwise, we may mistake ignorance for knowledge. Yeah. We can if we have knowledge, we have the positive side, but we may sometimes mistake ignorance for knowledge. And this happens with devotees, don't it? In the early stages, we don't have so much discretion, and we get caught up thinking we're engaged in devotional activities when actually our mood is material. So gradually, we start to differentiate the different consciousness we should actually be in. So this mantra is dealing with that. Vidyam chaviyam ya chayas tadvido bhayam saha vid avidyaya mitum tritva vidya amritam ashnute. Only one who can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. So, Maya Purishwari Mataji, would you like to read?
You can't read Maharaj because she's not at home at the moment.
Oh, okay. Kalpesh Prabhu, what about yourself?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Since the creation of the material world, everyone has been trying to attain a permanent life, but the laws of nature are so cruel that no one has been able to avoid the hand of death. No one wants to die. nor does anyone wants to become old or diseased. The law of nature, however, does not allow anyone immunity from old age, disease, or death, nor has the advancement of material knowledge solved these problems. Material science can discover the nuclear bomb to accelerate the process of death, but it cannot discover anything that can protect man from the cruel hands of old age, disease, and death. Should I continue, Maharaj?
Okay. So yeah, no, it's okay.
Okay.
So yeah, everybody wants to live on and on, but it's not possible. Everybody thinks they're the body, that's why. And therefore all our activities to try and become deathless are actually not going to work, because the body is temporary and it's going to actually eventually fizzle out. Okay, we can move on. Alex Mary, would you like to read? You just come on. Maybe we should come back to Alex later. Barbara Mataji, would you like to read?
Yes, okay. From the Puranas, we learn of the activities of Hiranyakasipu, a king who is very much advanced materially, wanting to be a conqueror, wanting to conquer cruel death by his material effort and the strength of his nearness. He underwent a type of meditation so severe that the inhabitants of all the planetary systems became disturbed by his mystic powers. He forced the creator of the universe, the demigod Brahma, to come down to him. He then asked Brahma for the benediction of becoming a Mara, by which one does not die. Brahma said that he could not award the benediction because he, the material creator who rules all planets, is not a Mara. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 8:17, Brahma lived a long time, but that does not mean he is immortal.
Yeah. You can read a bit more, I think that's okay.
Do you want me to read a bit more, did you say?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Haranga means gold and Kasipu means soft bed. This cunning gentleman, Haranga Kasipu, was interested in these two things, money and women, and he wanted to enjoy them by being immortal. He asked from Brahma many benedictions in hopes of indirectly fulfilling the desire to become immortal. Since Brahma told him that he could not grant the gift of immortality, Hiranyakasipu requested that he not be killed by any man, animal, god, or any other living being. With the 8,400 million, have I said that right?
8,400,000.
I've said it back to front. Species. He also asked that he did not die on land, in the air, or water, or by any weapon. In this way, Hiranyakasipu foolishly thought these guarantees would save him from death. Ultimately, however, although Brahma granted him all these benedictions, he was killed by the personality of Godhead in the form of the same, the Lord's half-lion, half-man incarnation, and no weapon was used to kill him, for he was killed by the Lord's nails. Nor was he killed on the land, in the air, or in the water, for he was killed on the lap of that wonderful living being, Nrsimha, who was beyond his conception.
Okay. By the way, when you say Nrsimha, it's the M with a dot over is a nasal sound. It's Nrsimha, like almost like an N.
Sorry, say that again. Am I saying that wrong?
It's not, you may have said it properly, but I'm just saying it for everybody's benefit.
Oh, yeah.
Generally, I hear a lot of devotees say Nrsimha. It's Nrsimha. a nasal
Vishinta.
sound, like an N.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Vishinta.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Sandeep, do you want to read?
Yes, Maharaj. The whole prayer is that even Hiranyakashipu, most powerful of
You can because if I have a coffee, it's
material,
having too heavy
would
ones. Where's my sock?
James, have you these
Barbara,
scratching?
Can I pass on?
Barbara Matters,
Take them and put them.
could
No,
not become deathless by his various plans.
Sock?
What then can be accomplished by the Hiranyakashipus of today, whose plans are thwarted from the moment to moment? Sri Upanishads instruct us not to make one-sided attempts to win the struggle for existence. Everyone is struggling hard for existence, but the laws of material nature are so hard and fast that they don't allow anyone to surpass them. In order to attain permanent life, one must be prepared to go back to Godhead. Process by which one goes back to Godhead is diffused knowledge, and it has to be learned from the revealed Vedic scriptures such as Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra, Bhagavad Gita, and Srimad Bhagavatam.
Okay. So anyway, this seems to have lost Sandeep. But anyway, we can you carry on, Don, from one must study this sacred literature?
Here we go. To become happy in this life and attain a permanent blissful life after leaving this material body, one must take to this sacred literature and obtain transcendental knowledge. The conditioned living being has forgotten his eternal relationship with God, and he has mistakenly accepted the temporary place of birth as all in all. The Lord has kindly delivered the above-mentioned scriptures in India and other scriptures in other countries to remind the forgetful human being that his home is not here in this material world. The living being is a spiritual entity, and he can only be happy by returning to his spiritual home.
Okay. So we can carry on. Sakarani Mataji, can you read?
From his kingdom, the personality of Godhead sends his bona fide servants to propagate this message by which one can return to Godhead. And sometimes the Lord comes himself to do this work. Since all living beings are his beloved sons, his parts and parcels, God is more sorry than we ourselves to see the sufferings we are constantly undergoing in this material condition. The miseries of this material world serve to indirectly remind us of our incompatibility with dead matter. Intelligent living entities generally take note of these reminders and engage themselves in the culture of Vidya, or transcendental knowledge. Human life is the best opportunity for the culture of spiritual knowledge, and a human being who does not take advantage of this opportunity is called a Naradama, the lowest of human beings.
Okay. That's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, Naradam. There's 4 kinds of people don't surrender to the Supreme Lord. Can anybody remember what they were? They're called Duskritina. Duskriti means meritorious, they've got merit, but Duskriti means they misuse it. One is called a mudha, or like an ass, he just works and works to try and, to eat and sleep and mate and defend. The next one is Navadam. These are people who are cultured in, what can you say, religiosity, superficial religiosity, obtaining wealth and, a very, what can you say, what's seen as upper class way of life, but there's no real dharma, there's no real connection with God. So we all come under that heading. It's a 99% of the material world are actually Naradam. Nara means human being, and Dham means the lowest, the lowest of human beings. And what's the other two? Anybody remember? Mayaparita Gyan. It means that they think they've got knowledge, but they even actually read the Shastras and they come to conclusion that they're God. So this is not a very intelligent conclusion. And the last one is the atheists. Asuram Bhava Mashritaha. Okay. So, Tusha Prabhu, you haven't read yet, have you?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. The path of avidya, or advancement of material knowledge for sense gratification, is the path of repeated birth and death. As he exists spiritually, the living entity has no birth or death. Birth and death apply to the outward covering of the spirit soul, the body. Death is compared to the taking off and birth to the putting on of outward garments. Foolish human beings who are grossly absorbed in the culture of avidya, nescience, do not mind this cruel process. Enamored with the beauty of the illusionary energy, they undergo the same miseries repeatedly and do not learn any lessons from the laws of nature. I will.
Okay. So it's like a goldfish. Has anybody studied a goldfish? Goldfish, it's not noted for being highly intelligent, is it? If it's in a round bowl and it swims from one end of the bowl to the other, and ding, it hits its nose on the glass because it can't see it, it thinks it's water. And so then it turns on and thinks, oh, I'm not going that way again. And so it swims to the other side and ding. And then, so he knows that he can't go that way, but he forgets. And he swims back the other way and keeps doing the ding, keeps bumping into the. So it's like that, we don't, third class intelligence means we don't learn, we just carry on doing the same thing. What's second class intelligence? We hear that, we suffer. We suffer a few times, then we give it up. And what's first class? First class means we hear that, don't do that, or you'll suffer. And so we don't do it. And then there's fourth class, that's completely out of it. Okay, Kalpesh Prabhu, would you like to read?
Yes, Maharaj. It's from the therefore, right? Therefore, the culture of avidya. Sorry, I lost the track of the paragraph.
Yeah.
Therefore, the culture of avidya or transcendental knowledge is essential for the human being. Sense enjoyment in the diseased material condition must be restricted as far as possible. Unrestricted sense enjoyment in this bodily condition is the path of ignorance and death. The living entities are not without spiritual senses. Every living being in his original spiritual form has all the senses, which are now materially manifested, being covered by the material body and mind. The activities of material senses are perverted reflections of the activities of the original spiritual senses. In his deceased condition, the spirit soul engages in material activities under the material covering. Real sense enjoyment is possible only when the disease of materialism is removed. In our pure spiritual form, free from all material contamination, real enjoyment of the senses is possible. A patient must regain his health before he can truly enjoy sense pleasure again. Should I continue, Maharaj?
You can stop there.
Yeah.
So, if you look on this on the screen, I put this is a verse from the Brahma Samhita. Shristi Stiti Palaya Sadhana Shakti Eka Chayeva Yasha Bhuvanani Vibhavati Durga Ichana Rupam Apiyasha Chachestate Sa Govinda Madhipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. So this is talking about Maya. This is what keeps us doing the wrong thing, like the goldfish. That this is the external this is the external potency, and it's a shadow of the chit potency. So a shadow means there's reality, and the shadow is sort of as a result of the reality. Yeah. So the real knowledge, and then there's Maya, which is just a shadow of reality. And so this is Durga Devi or Maya. And she's the one who creates, preserves, and destroys this material world. So she's actually performing her activities under the guidance of Lord Govinda. That's a nice verse from Lord Brahma. Okay, so we can't overcome Durga Devi. She's far too powerful. But because she's subservient to Lord Krishna, Govinda, if we take shelter of Govinda, then he can actually help us he can tell Maya to leave us alone when we're actually serious enough. Okay, so who's next? Sulman Prabhu.
Sorry, Maharaj, I can't read today.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes, you'd say that earlier. So, what about Goranam? Will you be able to read?
No, thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Sandeep Prabhu.
Yeah. This does not mean that all activities for the maintenance of the body should be stopped. There is no question of stopping activities, just as there is no question of wiping out one's temperature altogether when trying to recover from a disease. To make the best use of a bad bargain is the appropriate expression. The culture of spiritual knowledge necessitates the help of the body and mind. Therefore, maintenance of the body and mind is required if we are to reach our goal. The normal temperature should be maintained at 98.6 degrees, and the great sages and the saints of India have attempted to do this by a balanced program of spiritual and material knowledge. They never allow the misuse of human intelligence for disease, sense gratification. Human activities diseased by the tendency towards sense gratification has been regulated in the Vedas under the principles of salvation. This system employs religion, economic development, sense gratification, and salvation. But at the present moment, people have no interest in religion or salvation.
Can I just
They
stop
have
Sandeep Prabhu?
Yeah.
Have I got that? Are you reading from Isopanisad? Is that? I mean, I can't find where you're
Yes.
reading.
Yes, I'm reading from chapter 11.
Has anybody else got any trouble following?
Actually, he started reading from the next paragraph from where I stopped. So
A little bit further down, Maharaj.
What?
He started reading a little bit further down. If you
That's
drop
right.
down to the next paragraph, you'll see it.
Oh yeah, we started a little bit. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's talking about our normal temperature is 98.6. And if we get a little bit of fever, it might go up to, say, 99 or 100. That means there's more sense gratification than what we need. It's not a healthy condition. And if we increase the temperature, by more sense gratification, it's more dangerous. So, a balanced life, in other words, a healthy life means 98.6, or some sense gratification is needed but it's under license. Shastra or scripture gives an appropriate way to actually live so that we maintain our both material and spiritual health. Okay, so did you finish a section? Or are you still reading?
Yeah, I'll read. They have only one aim in the life, sense gratification, and in order to achieve this end, they make plans for economic development. Misguided men think that the religion should be maintained because it contributes to economic development, which is required for sense of gratification. Thus, in order to guarantee further sense gratification after death in heaven, there is some system of religious observance. But this is not the purpose of religion. The path of religion is actually meant for self realization, and economic development is required just to maintain the body in a sound, healthy condition. A man should lead a healthy life with a sound mind just to realize Vidya, true knowledge, which is the main which is the aim of human life. This life is not meant for working like an ass or for culturing avidya for sense gratification.
Okay. Okay, so who's next to read? Anybody not read the same time? Okay, so Barbara, can you? Oh, try Krishna Prabhu.
The path of Vidya is most perfectly presented in Srimad Bhagavatam, which directs the human being to utilize his life to inquire into the absolute truth. The absolute truth is realized step by step as Brahman, Paramatma, and finally Bhagavan. The personality of Godhead, the absolute truth, is realized by a broad-minded man who has attained knowledge and detachment by following the 8 principles of the Bhagavad Gita, described in the purport, Mantra 10. The central purpose of these 18 principles is the attainment of transcendental devotional service to the personality of Godhead. Therefore, all classes of men are encouraged to learn the art of devotional service to the Lord.
Well, and you can carry on a bit.
The guaranteed path to the aim of Vidya is described by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which we have presented in English as a nectar of devotion. The culture of Vidya is summarized in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:2-14 in the following words. Tasmat akena manas Bhagavan Sattvatam Patihi Shrot Avya Kirtani Vyas Cha Jaya Pujas Chanityada. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. Unless religion, economic development, sense gratification aim towards the attainment of devotional service to the Lord, they are simply different forms of nescience. Sri Isopanisad indicates in the following mantra.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Let's finish that section. Yes, so we have to understand both, that's the point. And we understand exactly how this, it's like when you're in a war. Actually, I heard a purport by Prabhupada, he was giving a talk, and he was saying that the first thing you need to understand in a war is the strength of the opposition. And if you know you can't defeat them, and don't fight them, it's just a waste of time. And so we have to know our weaknesses, what's attracting us to this world. And so the first thing we do is start following principles to actually regulate our attachment for regulative principles like that. And then, we can start to, become freed from those by a positive process. So then we can attack the enemy, in other words. And Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, they're the spies. information which give us about the enemy and how to actually defeat. Like Bhagavad Gita says, talks about lust, which is the all-devouring attraction to this world. And it tells us where the lust resides. Does anybody know where the lust resides? In 3 places. In the senses, you know, our senses are attracted. In our mind and in our intelligence.
Mind, sense, and intelligence. Sorry, I
Yeah.
was technologically slow.
Yeah, those 3 places. And it says that, you know, we have to control this, regulate it. We can't control it immediately. We've got regulation, and gradually we overcome. Okay, we'll start with mantra 12. Andam tamaha pravishanti yedvid ye sambhutim upasate tato bhuya evate tamo ya usambhutyam rataha. Those who are engaged in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance, and still more do the worshippers of the impersonal absolute. I mean, we can stop there and have questions if anybody's got any comments. We've got 10 minutes left, or we can just carry on, whichever is suitable. Okay, so Barbara Matchery, would you like to read? The purport to 12, beginning.
Barbara, you need to unmute yourself. That's your camera. There you go.
Can you hear now?
Yep.
Right. Those who are engaged in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance, and still more so do the worshippers of the impersonal absolute. The Sanskrit word sambhuti refers to those who have no independent existence. Sambhuti is the absolute personality of Godhead, who is absolutely independent of everything. In the Bhagavad Gita 10.2, the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna states, will someone read the Sanskrit, please?
Name vidu suraganaha prabhavam maharshayaha aham adihi devanam maharshinam sarvashaha.
Thank you. Neither the host of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences, for in every respect I am the source of the demigods and sages. Thus Krishna is the origin of the powers delegated to the demigods, great sages and mystics. Although they are endowed with great powers, these powers are limited, and thus it is very difficult for them to know how Krishna himself appears by his own internal potency in the form of a man.
Okay. This is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita also. That's 10.2, it mentions that. Okay, so Tusha, can you read?
Hare Krishna. Many philosophers and great rishis or mystics tried to distinguish the absolute from the relative by their tiny brain power. This can only help them reach the negative conception of the absolute without realizing any positive trace of the absolute. definition of the absolute by negation is not complete. Such negative definitions lead one to create a concept of one's own. Thus, one imagines that the absolute must be formless and without qualities. Such negative qualities are simply the reversals of the relative. Material qualities and are therefore also relative. By conceiving of the absolute in this way, one can at most reach the impersonal effulgence of God, known as Brahman. But one cannot make further progress to Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. I will.
Yeah. Such mental speculators do not know that the absolute personality of Godhead is Krishna, that the impersonal Brahman is the glaring effulgence of his transcendental body, or that the Paramatma, the Supersoul, is all-pervading plenary representation. Nor do they know that Krishna has his eternal form with its transcendental qualities, eternal bliss and knowledge. The dependent demigods and great sages imperfectly consider him to be a powerful demigod, and they consider the Brahman effulgence to be the absolute truth. But the devotees of Krishna, by dint of their surrendering unto him and their unalloyed devotion, can know that he is the absolute person and that everything emanates from him. Such devotees continue to render loving service unto Krishna, the fountainhead of everything. Yeah, the demigods, they consider him to be a powerful demigod like themselves, and they consider the Brahman effulgence to be the absolute truth. That's interesting, isn't it? Does anybody see any problem with that? The dependent demigods and great sages imperfectly consider him to be a powerful demigod, and they consider the Brahman effulgence to be the absolute truth. Just thinking, you know, the demigods are devotees, aren't they? You know, Indra, he actually sometimes gets Krishna's darshan. So when it says the dependent demigod and great sages imperfectly consider him to be a powerful demigod, right? So that's a difficult one to understand. Anyway, that's the homework for next week. All right, you've got to do some research and find out what the answer is. Okay, you've got to get your Agatha Christie books on. But the devotees we've done that. Okay, so Don Peru, would you like to read?
We're alive. In Bhagavad Gita, it is also said, 720, that only bewildered persons, driven by a strong desire for sense gratification, worship the demigods for the satisfaction of temporary problems. Temporary relief from certain difficulties by the greatness of some demigod is a solution sought only by the unintelligent. Since the living being is materially entangled, he has to be relieved from material bondage entirely to attain permanent relief on the spiritual plane, where eternal bliss, life, and knowledge exist. It is also stated in Bhagavad Gita 7:23 that the worshippers of the demigods can go to the planets of the demigods. The moon worshippers can go to the moon, the sun worshippers to the sun, etc. Modern scientists are now venturing to the moon with the help of rockets, but this is not really a new attempt. With their advanced consciousness, human beings are naturally inclined to travel in outer space to reach the other planets, either by spaceships, mystic powers, or demigod worship. In the Vedic scriptures, it is said that one can reach other planets by any one of the three ways, but the most common way is by worshipping the demigod residing over that particular planet. However, all planets in the material universe are temporary residences. The only permanent planets are the Vaikuntha Lokas. These are found in the spiritual sky, and the personality of Godhead himself dominates them. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punavantino Juna Mamupteya Te Kuntaya Punajanma Na Vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. 8:16.
Okay. Sri Chakarani Masterji.
Sri Isopanisad points out that one who worships demigods and attains to their material planets still remains in the darkest region of the universe. The whole universe is covered by the gigantic material elements. It's just like a coconut covered by a shell and half filled with water. Since its covering is airtight, the darkness within it is dense, and therefore the sun and the moon are required for illumination. Outside the universe is the vast and unlimited Brahmajyoti expansion, which is filled with Vaikuntha Lokas. The biggest and highest planet is the Brahmajyoti. Sorry, I'll start again. The biggest and highest planet in the Brahmajyoti is Krishna Loka or Goloka Vrindavana, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna himself resides. Lord Sri Krishna never leaves Krishna Loka. Although he dwells there with his eternal associates, he is omnipresent throughout the complete material and spiritual cosmic manifestations. This fact has already been explained in Mantra 4. The Lord is present everywhere, just like the sun, yet he is situated in one place, just as the sun is situated in its own undeviating orbit.
Okay. Now that's what philosophy is that? It's simultaneously everywhere, but it's also an individual. Called Achintya, isn't it? We cannot understand it. Achintya Veda Veda Tattva. It's simultaneously one thing, but it's also another thing at the same time. It's simultaneously impersonal, but it's also personal. Mayata Tamidam Sarvam, it says in Bhagavad Gita. By me, in my unmanifested, or my pervadis all universes. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Then it says, and yet everything that exists does not rest in me. So it seems like contradictions. But it's right. It's inconceivable that Krishna is, the smaller than the smallest and greater than the greatest. And Lord Brahma says, such is the transcendental Lord who I adore. It's so powerful. And so we are devotees of that supremely powerful person. So Prabhupada used to say, among devotees said to Prabhupada, you look so proud. He says, yes, I'm proud to be a devotee of Lord Krishna. And he used to walk with his head back and his head in the air. So that kind of pride's okay. Okay, we'll have to put a bookmark here. And is there any questions anyway? Anything else? Okay, so we'll be on next week. We'll be in the middle of Mantra 12. So thank you for joining, everybody.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Okay, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you next time.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Ki Jai. Entourage Srimad Bhagavatam Ki
Jai.
Hare Bol.
Very good.